This is class number 2 of emergency preparedness for multi-dwelling units. What we're going to talk about tonight is writing out an earthquake, communicating after a disaster, smartphone apps that you can download now, how to keep your cell phone charged, and then we'll let you guys go into breakout rooms and you can talk about these issues that we're discussing in class and then anything else that comes up. Writing out an earthquake, what to do when the earth shakes, drop, cover, and hold on. You'll notice in some of these pictures, the person's hand is on the back of their head. And then you'll notice on other ones, it's on the back of their neck. I would suggest putting your hand on the back of your neck if you can, because your neck is more vulnerable than your head. Head, we have this amazing skull, keeps everything in there safe for the most part, but your neck is very vulnerable. So if your shoulders allow for it, get your hand to the back of your neck instead of just your head. Drop, cover, and hold is always the best advice. Do not run. It is a very common mistake that people make. It has something to do with our DNA. It's built into our instincts. We run often. So you really have to fight that urge to run. Drop, cover, and hold on. The reason you drop, meaning get down on all fours as soon as you can, is because if you don't drop, the earth may drop you for you. Get down on your hands and knees, lower that center of gravity before the earth starts shaking really intensely. We're going to talk about is 2 different myths that have both been busted. Doorways are not a safer place to be. That's based on a completely different type of architecture. So do not go to a doorway if the earth starts shaking. Number 1, there's a door there that can hit you. And number 2, there's hinges there that can really injure your hands. So do not move to a doorway. It is not a safer place to be. Also, the triangle of life was a myth that's been around and still kind of persists a little bit. The idea is that you're safer if you're next to a table instead of under a table. Because if something was going to fall on the table, the object plus the table would then both be on top of you. That is not true. You are safer being under the table. In general, here in the United States, with the type of architecture we have, people are hurt during earthquakes because things fall on them, as in pictures off the wall, furniture sometimes will tip over, even a fridge, even a really heavy fridge can tip over if it's not secured. So it's things coming off the wall and off the ceiling that will hurt you. It is not the building collapsing. We do not have buildings that collapse for the most part. There are buildings that are prone to collapse in earthquakes. They're called unreinforced masonry buildings. Nobody on this call is living in an unreinforced masonry building. So those are more dangerous than the typical buildings. For the most part, the buildings we have here, they're built decently, so they're not going to pancake on top of you. So get underneath the furniture, not next to it. Triangle of life idea is a myth that has been busted. Get underneath the furniture if you can, not next to it. I want to show this video of a bedroom. It's a really small bedroom, but it's a very graphic demonstration of what happens during an earthquake. So we spend 1/3 of our lives in bed. Let's talk about how to be safe in bed. This is how you write out an earthquake in bed. You stay in bed, face down, put the pillow over your head, protect the back of your neck, and just stay there until the shaking stops. Grab your light, your flashlight, and put on your shoes, and then you're ready to get up and start checking on others in your household. So at the end of today's class, I will send out a to-do list, your homework list. And the first thing on that homework list is lay down in every bed in your house, look up what's going to fall on you in the middle of the night, and can you secure it? Can you secure it to the wall so it won't fall on you? Can you move that piece of furniture so that it doesn't fall on you, or move your bed or whatever? But make sure you're safe in bed and put that light source and put those shoes underneath your bed. So if you're in school or if you're in an office, you want to move away from the windows, only because the windows might break and you want to be away from that glass. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to drop, cover, and hold on. You're going to protect your neck, and you're going to stay there until the shaking stops. And you can see in this picture, these 2 folks up front are holding on to that piece of furniture. And that's what they mean when they say drop, cover, and hold on. because that table's going to bounce. You want to make sure you're bouncing with it and you're not going in the opposite direction so that it's no longer on top of you. So
Can I ask you a question?
sure.
So in our apartment in Enzo in Seattle, we actually only have one table and
Mhm.
there's a lot of windows. It's all windows,
Yep.
a whole wall of windows. So is it safer to go under the table if there are all those windows, or do you have to try and move the table, or what do you do?
Go under the table. If you're nowhere near the table, then you want to get next to an interior wall. If it's a strong earthquake, there is not time, nor will you have the ability to move much. Really, your goal is to get down on all fours as quickly as you can so that you're not thrown down and get hurt that way. And if you can, crawl to under furniture. But you're not going to be able
Mhm.
to walk to furniture more than likely. You really should get down on your hands and knees first and crawl, if you can even crawl to furniture. Did that help?
Not completely. So the question is, should we be crawling to the table if the table's near windows, or should we be crawling to a wall farther away?
My guess is crawl farther away.
Okay.
I kind of have to see your
Of course, it
layout, but
depends on where you are
yes,
in the
exactly. Yeah.
apartment.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there is no table or desk, the guidance is to crawl to an interior wall. And that's only because interior walls are typically further away from the windows. There's nothing stronger about an interior wall versus an exterior wall. They're just further away from the glass. You can also get next to low-lying furniture like a couch. That'll protect you a little bit, and then stay there until the shaking stops. So that's what this person's doing, is up against an interior wall. This person, who would have trouble getting down on all fours, I'm guessing, is just trying to get lower than the back of their recliner. Because if something's going to come off the ceiling, it's going to hit the back of that recliner before it hits them. If you're in a grocery store, next to a grocery cart is a good place to be, like this person. Beneath a clothing rack in a clothing store. Lock your wheelchair wheels if you're in a wheelchair. And then this person in the very front has their young child underneath them. They're holding the back of their head. They're hanging onto their child. They've got their child protecting the back of their neck, and they're protecting their child. So I thought that was a really good example of what to do if you have a small kid with you. If you're in an elevator, the guidance is to push all the buttons to stop the elevator and pry the doors open and get out. What we're going to have you guys do is talk to leaders in your building to find out how your elevators function, because they're all a little bit different. They all do some very smart things, but you need to find out exactly what happens in your building. So stay tuned to the breakout rooms and you'll learn that. And then if you're in a theater, any kind of setting like this, you just want to, again, get as low as you can. They've got their hands on the back of their neck. They're trying to get lower than the back of the chairs. Another option would be to get down on the floor. This is a movie theater. You get down there with the popcorn, but get as low as you can. So anything coming off the walls or off the ceiling hits the furniture before it hits you. This is a very important one, especially for you guys because you live in tall buildings. If you have just exited a building, go back inside. You are safer in that building than you are on the sidewalk. So go back inside, drop cover, and hold on. And this is why. Even if your building is very, very sturdy and remains safe enough to live in, there will be things on the outside of that building that will fall off. Could be glass, could be gargoyles, it could be decorative concrete, could be anything. There's going to be a lot of debris right on the outside of buildings. So you do not want to be on the sidewalk if this is coming down. So if you have just exited a building, go back inside. Drop cover and hold on right there in the entrance. And then if you're outside, get as low as you can, make yourself a very small target. Stay away from power lines, buildings, and vehicles. If you're driving, pull over, parking brake, and avoid overpasses, bridges, and power lines. This car kept moving so as not to stop underneath this overpass. And the reason for that is even if the overpass is stable and even if cars are still able to drive across it, the concrete on the bottom side of the overpass is probably going to crack and fall down. So you just don't want that landing on your car, landing on you. If you're near the shore or beneath a dam, you have two steps. Number one, drop down to the ground, make yourself a small target, protect your head and neck. As soon as you can, as soon as the shaking stops enough for you to get up and walk, you want to walk quickly / run to high ground or inland. How would you know if a tsunami is coming? If the ground shakes, assume a tsunami is coming and get up to high ground. Don't wait to see if it's coming, just move. Another sign that a tsunami is coming is if the water recedes below the tide level. So if you see the water going out, that is not a good thing. You need to move. You need to get to high ground as soon as you can and as fast as you can. So don't wait, move. And then there's this idea, and it's put out there by all these movies about tsunamis, that there's this giant wall of water that you're going to see for miles away coming at you. And that's just not how it works. It is not a wall of water. If you're out in the ocean, you can barely even tell a tsunami is underneath you. It's so subtle. And even if you're on the shore, it is not intense. It's only like a 5-foot swell until it gets really close to shore, and that's when it grows in height. So don't stand there looking to see this wall of water coming towards you to know that a tsunami is coming. That's not what they look like. It is not a wall of water. They're much more subtle. Again, another great picture of how to handle things if you're around little kids. She is holding on so that table doesn't move without her, and she's protecting that child up against her own body. So communicating with loved ones after a disaster. How to contact family and friends if the power's out. Don't call 911 to ask if that was an earthquake. So let's talk about landlines. Some folks still have them and they're curious about them. Landlines might work. Truly less than 10%, probably closer to 5% of landlines here in the city of Seattle are actually landlines, meaning that there is a copper wire from your phone all the way to the phone company. Those are incredibly rare. They are almost always 90 to 95% of the time, they're broken up at some point and that signal goes wireless, transmits wirelessly. You probably don't have a true landline. If you do, it'll work during a power outage. So that's how you figure it out. A lot of folks keep their landline thinking that they're safer after a disaster. When cell towers are overwhelmed, it's probably not true that you have a true landline, but you can figure that out by the next time the power goes out, does your phone still work? Texting is probably your best bet. In fact, it's almost always your best bet. So let's talk about how to text smartly. You want to include the date and the time in each text, and that's because it might not get delivered right away. It might take a while. And you want to make your message count. Give the person that you're texting good information. So here's a couple examples. This first text says, OMG, what was that? Are you okay? Where are you? What do we do now? The only thing you've told this person that you're texting is that your thumbs work and that your phone works, but you haven't given them any good information. So here's a better one. I'm home and I'm fine. The dog is okay. I'm checking on neighbors, but I'm staying put. It's 4:25 p.m. on a Tuesday. So they know I'm doing okay, the dog's okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and they know when I sent it. That's a good text. Don't waste your text just with lots of emojis and exclamation points. Make your message count. And then you need to find an out-of-town contact. So what this person does is they help family members or household members on the ground communicate, because sometimes it's easier to get a text message out of the city and back into the city than it is across the city. And it has to do with cell phone towers and how tied up they are. Say this is me right here. This is Anne. I will text my out of town contact person as well as my other family members. And if my out of town contact person is watching this text string and knows that it's not getting through to my husband and my son on the ground here in Seattle with me, then they will just forward that text to my husband and my son. So they don't have to change my text, they just forward it down. Because again, sometimes it's easier to get a text out of the city and then back in than it is across the city. They just relay messages. The person you want to be your out of town contact is in Spokane, Washington, or further east. You don't want them north of us, you don't want them south of us, you don't want them involved in the same disaster we are. For my family, it is my mother-in-law in Las Vegas, Nevada. She knows exactly what she's supposed to do. She knows that her only job is to forward the texts to help us communicate. And then also, we have given her a job. We've given her a to-do list. These are the people I want you to contact. My parents happen to be older. They're not on social media. I'm not going to text them. I would like for her to call them. And then I want her to get on social media. So contact others, put something on social media, on Facebook or whatever, and let people know that she has heard from me and or heard from the rest of the family and that we're doing okay. And then anything else you can think of you want them to do, give them a job. They'll be thrilled to help because again, they're outside of the disaster zone. There's nothing they can do for you except this kind of stuff. The other thing to think about is your phone may not work after a disaster. So maybe you can't text. And most of us don't know the phone numbers that are on our phones anymore. So write down these important phone numbers. This is how I did it. It's a 3x5 card and I put it in a plastic bag and I have probably 12 copies stashed in purses, in backpacks, in our glove boxes, in the bag that my husband goes back and forth to work with. Any place I can think of putting them, I have tucked them. And you want the phone numbers for everybody in your family. You want your out of town contacts phone number, your school, your landlord, the neighbors around you, because we know how important they are, employer, pet sitter, a friend on the walk home, anybody you can think of that might be helpful after a disaster. You want to put their phone number down, tuck it away in a safe place in case you ever need it. Smartphone apps to download now. Weirdly, there are smartphone apps that are really helpful after a disaster. We typically tell you not to rely on technology, but if your phone's working, even if you don't have cell phone signal, these will still work. Hopefully everybody has used QR codes before. So this black and white square is called a QR code. It's quick response. Embedded in all that black and white signals is a really quick path to a website. So you take your phone, you turn on the camera, you look at that square, and it should lead you to a website. So a lot of what I'm going to show you relies on the QR codes. Here's two apps. The American Red Cross and FEMA both have apps that if you let them know where you are, they will tell you about disasters occurring near you. And I have a good example of this. A friend of mine was traveling in Hawaii and she had the American Red Cross app on her phone and she had it turned on so they knew where she was. She got an alert that said, heavy rains are coming. There's a flood warning in effect for your area. She was vacationing. She got this alert. She went out and moved her car. And the next day her car was fine. And the neighbors that lived there, their car was underwater. So these work if you have cell phone signal and if you have let them know where you are. They have to know what part of the country you're living in. All of these apps I'm going to give you access to in a YouTube video. So you don't need to be writing anything down. I'm just going to describe them and then I'll give you the ability to download these on your phone in a second. So the last two I showed you, you have to have a cell phone signal or Wi-Fi for those to work because they have to be able to locate you. But these work even without a cell phone signal or any kind of internet. Red Cross has a human first aid app and a pet first aid app. It's like carrying around a first aid book in your phone. WebMD is the same thing. As soon as you download it, it's on your phone as if you're carrying a book around. This is one on emergency survival, how to build a fire with 2 sticks, that kind of stuff. It's a little bit more wilderness survival, but it might come in handy. The one on the bottom left is what actions to take in the first 30 minutes of a hazardous material spill. I think that stuff's fascinating. I wouldn't have a clue what to do. Again, it's like having that book on your phone. Google Translate, if you're ever in a situation where you need to talk to someone that does not speak your language, very useful app to have. And this one's on knot tying. Again, you may never need it, but it's kind of like a Boy Scout book on your phone. These are maps that you can download onto your phone that will be available even if you don't have Wi-Fi signal. So your ability to navigate after a disaster like an earthquake is going to be really hindered because everything looks different. Trees aren't where they're supposed to be. Buildings don't look the same. Street signs are toppled over. It's really difficult to navigate after a large disaster. So something like a Google Map or Maps.me, those are both really good. In the video, I tell you to download both of them because they do different things and they each have their own strengths. You download these two apps. You have to download the map ahead of time. So for us, it would be downloading the map of Seattle. Or if you're traveling to Denver, Colorado, you can download Denver, Colorado's map and have it there even if you don't have any connection to the internet. This is a snapshot of my phone. I have taken all these emergency apps and I've thrown them into the same folder and I've called it emergency because there's quite a few. That's my suggestion, is to put them all together so your phone isn't quite so cluttered. And then in your homework is guidance to sign up for these 3 things: Alert Seattle, Alert King County. That's how the city of Seattle will notify you of things after a disaster. As soon as they have the ability to text or send out messages, send out emails or phone calls, they will use Alert Seattle and Alert King County to do that. Smart 911 is a bit different. It's hooked to Alert Seattle. It's very much the same kind of system run by the same people. But Smart 911 allows the ambulance drivers coming up to your house to have information about you before they get there. I have a pacemaker, I'm a brittle diabetic, whatever it is you want to tell them, they can get that information before they arrive at your house. So they're just better prepared about what they're walking into. Put in there what you're comfortable with. Don't put in there what you're not comfortable with. It's your call. This is the video. It's a poor video and I apologize, but I am not an actress. Are you tech ready? It's on YouTube. I give you the QR code to get to it and the link to get to it. It's about 13 minutes long. What I suggest, if you have this option, you put the video up on a tablet or a computer or a laptop or something like that, and grab your phone in the other hand and do them both at the same time. Have the video running on a computer screen or some kind of monitor, and have your phone right there so you can use those QR codes to download the apps as you go through. Last topic for tonight, and then I'm gonna let you guys go to your breakout rooms and discuss some of this stuff. Keeping your cell phone charged. I've always been concerned about keeping my cell phone charged because there's so much information on my cell phone. If you have a car, there's quite a bit of power stored in that battery. Can we use it? That's always been my question. So this device allows you to use this. You hook these clips right onto your battery. Because sure, you can sit in your car and you can turn the car on, or you can even click the keys over a couple times and you can charge your phone straight out of your cigarette lighter. But that's energizing your entire car. So this takes the power straight out of the battery through this wire. This is a fuse, and this is a cigarette lighter. You plug this kind of device into the cigarette lighter and you charge your phone. So it really is just your cell phone and your battery talking. There's nothing else involved. You're not energizing your entire car. You're not potentially sending power to the lights or anything else. I've included an article, if you want to read it, if you're interested in it, that explains how you can charge your phone like 20 to 30 times, still have enough energy in there to start your car. There's quite a bit of stored power in our batteries, and there's enough cars running around Seattle that we could support one another doing this for a while. I'm not necessarily recommending that everybody get one of these devices, but they are $12, so they're not outrageously priced. But maybe if a floor or a couple neighbors get together and buy one of these and stash it somewhere, you could all take turns taking the battery out of your car, or even just unhooking your car battery from the rest of the car. I am looking into what else can we charge off of batteries. It's a resource that I want to exploit. There are lots of medical devices that we need to be able to charge after a disaster to take care of those that rely on that kind of stuff. Can we charge a motorized wheelchair off of something like this? Can I charge it halfway just to give that person some kind of mobility? Again, there's medical devices that are in people's homes. Can I keep things running with a car battery? You do have homework. I will send that out as soon as class is over with. It's basically doing exactly what I talked about, picking out your out of town contact, writing down those phone numbers, downloading those smartphone apps, signing up for Alert Seattle, Alert King County, Smart 911. All that stuff is on the PDF that I'll send out, and all of it's linked. Keep encouraging neighbors to join. And that's it for me. I'm going to break you guys up into breakout rooms, and I'll stick around just kind of listening. One of the things you want to talk about, like I suggested, was the elevators. Figure out what your elevators do, because your community leaders have figured this out from management. So it would be good to know what your elevator is going to do after a disaster.